So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through a little summary of our reopening health and safety plan so you can see how things are going to work. Before we start, I can give you a couple pieces of information that people were asking about during the board meeting. So working with Mr. Gatto and with Mrs. Egan, just so you know, we're constantly following the Department of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, the Department of Education. Any updates that are coming out, we're staying on top of them as quickly as we can. For anyone who's involved in sports, you'll see that the governor put out information today. We're awaiting what the PIAA is going to say so that we can update everyone appropriately. We're constantly looking at information, and we will make plans, changes to the plan as we need to, based off that information that is given to those who are helping guide us through this very difficult situation. The other thing is the district did move forward, and we will have 2 nurses in the building this year. So we will have Mrs. Martinelli, who is our nurse who's been there. She's going to still be with us. But Mrs. Wagner, who's one of our kindergarten aides, but is also a certified nurse, will be helping us out also as a nurse this year. So we can really limit any kind of movement between the 2 buildings, so those buildings will function as 2 separate buildings as much as possible. Where, in the past, because of how small we are, we interchange often, but we're going to try to really stop that. The other thing that all administration is committed to is that if there was any reason that we had to go fully virtual or we were shut down for any reason, any activity that we've always had, there were questions about Honor Society, even right down to our Halloween parade. Whatever we can do virtually to still give students that ability to have that event, we are going to do that. We do not want to take anything away from anyone. It is a crazy time that we're in right now. These are very unique circumstances, but just like the work that Mrs. Egan and Mr. Gatto did last year with virtual graduations and with awards night and with all those other things that had to be done so that kids still had them, we will always make sure that we're going to get your kids what they deserve because they're in this unfortunate time in schools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share out my screen. And again, for those of us who are joining late, I am recording this so I can post it for parents who had to work tonight or who couldn't be here so that they still have an opportunity to see this or to hear this presentation. And I'm going to go through some slides on our plan that we're looking at to bring everyone back. And then what I can do is if everyone, if you want to take notes, if you have questions at the end, Mr. Gatto and Mrs. Egan and I will be here to answer your questions or to help you in any way. So I'm gonna try to go through this now. So as many people know, because this plan was adopted, it was in the newspapers and a lot of different venues. We are going to be working on what the state is calling a hybrid schedule, which means students will be attending 2 days. If you choose, there is a full remote virtual option as well. And then they'll be working from home for 3 days. What this lets us do is limit the population of each building to half so that we can make sure that while we're in there, we're appropriately social distancing, we're keeping people separated to the maximum extent possible, really looking at that 6 feet. And honestly, folks, I could tell you Mr. Gatto and Mr. Gutowski, the head of facilities, literally were in the cafeteria with measuring tapes, making sure that we knew how many kids can be seated with 6 feet between them so we can make sure things are safe. We're taking this very, very seriously. And I'm going to have to keep jumping back and forth because I got to let people into the meeting. So I apologize for that. But I will keep talking here. So we're going to have about half the building population in this hybrid model. In the hybrid schedule, and I'm sorry, because I have to let somebody in again. I'm kind of controlling and taking care of things at the same time here. But in this hybrid schedule, we're still going to have some kids that are going to be coming in or have an opportunity to come in more than those 2 days if they need additional supports. And that's all going to be data-based or really based on students who have an IEP and their progress monitoring and their goals. So Mrs. Hopkins is going to be working with everyone on that. And Mrs. Hopkins will be sending out literature. She has a whole overview that we're going to be presenting for everyone there. But we will be working with any student who has an IEP and making sure that we're getting the data on them as soon as they come back to school and looking for any regression and modifying their IEP and their goals and making sure we're having those meetings and that you are there as a parent and we're supporting your child in the unique way that their exceptionality deems. So during the time that we have on-site classes, again, there's going to be a Monday, Wednesday group. So some people will be coming in Monday, Wednesdays. Some people will be coming in on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we're really going to be all virtual on Fridays. So that's going to be where we're going to be looking at virtual instruction. If there's a need for your child to come in for any reason on a Friday, the principal or Mrs. Hopkins would be in touch with you and we'd be working through that. Now, on any day that has a holiday, we're going to make sure that we adjust the schedule so those kids get in for their 2 full days on those days. And I apologize that I'm jumping back and forth, but I have to make sure people are getting in. So, for example, we push the start of school until September 8th. That's letting us track the virus a little more. So kids are coming back on September 8th, which is a Tuesday. It's the day after Labor Day. Our Tuesday, Thursday kids will follow their normal schedule. But our Monday, Wednesday kids will come in Wednesday and Friday that week. So we'll make sure that they get in so that they have their 2 days of instruction with us. Now, our kindergartners will be coming in for a half day, Monday to Friday. So they'll do work with their teachers in the morning, and then we'll send some work home with them in the afternoon so that they'll be doing some work there. So our kindergartners will be coming in every day, and they'll be on a half-day schedule. For any kindergarten, if it's AM, we'll be able to give transportation to school in the morning, but you need to get them at noon. If they're PM, you'll need to get them to us, but we'd be able to provide transportation home in the afternoon. All right. And I know that this is very inconvenient, what I'm about to say, and it's not something anyone needs to hear. But with the constant changing patterns of this virus, I need everyone to be ready for 5 full days of childcare. If we have to close the building for any reason, if there was an outbreak and we needed to shut down to be clean, to have cleaning done in any way, or if we are put virtual via the state or some other entity and we need to move to that platform. So just so everyone knows, I know it's not what people want to hear, but I need you to be prepared for that just in case. When it comes to wearing of masks, we are going to strictly adhere to the Secretary of Health's directives. So we're going to follow what the Secretary of Health said. And how we're going to do that is that masks need to be worn. Okay, so masks are going to be worn at all times. So on buses, on vans, in and out of the building, hallways, anything else. I was talking to a parent this week, and how I kind of said it is, if you're moving, you're in a mask. The Secretary of Health has made a stipulation that if students, and I apologize here, are seated at their desks and they're 6 feet apart, they may remove their masks. Now, we will encourage that kids, for their own safety, are wearing masks, and we're developing age and grade level appropriate lesson plans. So we're constantly going to be reinforcing hygiene and mask wearing, but they can remove it there. And I know that there's polarized camps on mask wearing. There's people who believe we should have one on all the time and never take it off. And there's folks who believe that we don't really need them all the time. I can't get into personal views, but what I can do is follow what the Secretary of Health is advising us. And that is that you should be, by her directive, in a mask at all times, except what this slide is up right here. Schools may allow students to remove their face coverings when students are eating or drinking and spaced 6 feet apart, or seated at desks in assigned workspaces 6 feet apart, or engaged in an activity where they are 6 feet apart. So we're going to follow her directive on that. You know, I joked this afternoon with Mr. Gatto when we were talking about this stuff, and I basically said, if your tushy leaves the seat, you got to make sure you have your mask on. So if you're moving, your mask is on at all times. We're going to ask all parents, staff members, myself, everyone in the morning that you do a personal health check. You know, the Department of Health and the CDC has time and time again said that there's indicators of this virus. Obviously, a fever is one of them. They have used 100.4 as the major indicator. But honestly, folks, if your kid's running a temperature for any reason, they shouldn't be in school at that point. We need to make sure that they're okay, that they're healthy before they come back. But we're going to ask everyone to do a self-check in the morning. And if you have any of these symptoms, coughing, shortness of breath, diarrhea, chills, shaking, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, or loss of taste or smell, that you contact your health care provider at this time, and that you make sure that you're okay to come into the building so that other people are not compromised in any way. Because, you know, this virus is something that could take on many different forms. So we're going to ask that. Now, we have purchased a system for the building that will be scanning temperatures on everyone. So we will be monitoring that within the building. However, and it's not going to be at the door checks, it's going to be a system that works within the confines of the building. But we are asking you to make sure you do this and to stay home. And listen, folks, I am guiltier than anyone in this world of powering into work when I probably shouldn't have been there, sniffly and coffee and not really feeling good. And I probably should have stayed home. But in my mind, I have to get to work. This year is going to be different. We cannot be reporting to school with any of those symptoms because we don't know what those symptoms are a sign of without that medical provider telling us we're okay or not. You know, and it's going to be a hard pill for me to swallow that if I wake up and I have a sore throat and a cold and I don't feel good, that I can't come into work, because I normally would have powered myself in there and then I would have sat at my desk sneezing all day long into tissues. So I get where people are coming from, but we just can't do it this year. We've worked with our food service provider. In fact, they were in today. They've done extensive work and training to make sure that we can still provide our food services to our students, but we can do so in a very, very healthy and safe way. So the first thing I want you to know is that in the high school cafeteria that Mr. Gatto and Mr. Gutowski had went through, there'll be some seating within what we all traditionally know as the cafeteria. And then there's going to be spillover seating that goes out into the area in the hallway where there's the vending machines. And if we need to, we're going to use the stage in the auditorium as well to ensure that kids are 6 feet apart, then that they can have their lunch. In the elementary building, we will use the traditional cafeteria that's there, but we're also going to put the tarp down on the floor in the elementary gym so that we can space the tables apart and make sure that there's appropriate seating for everyone 6 feet apart using the elementary gym as well. So we're really looking at making sure that that 6 foot element is there to do that. Now, in the elementary level, those kiddos that would be getting a breakfast or usually get their breakfast will still be serving that in the cafeteria like we normally would, and we'll adhere to all those social distancing guidelines. But in the high school, we're going to have a cart this year in the lobby where kids can go grab and go, and they'll take their breakfast right up to class, and they'll be able to eat in their first period class. There's going to be no cash transactions this year. So the elementary system that exists where you can, send money or your check in and then it goes into the Dropbox, that's the system we'll use. There is an online system that you can use as well. However, there is a service charge for using that online system. So if you don't want to have to pay that service charge, you can still send money into the Dropbox. But inside the cafeteria, there's going to be no cash transactions. That's for students and staff. So that's how we'll take care of that. We're going to use our PIN numbers, and we're going to be telling the cafeteria staff our PIN numbers. So when I go up for my lunch or anyone goes up for their lunch, they're going to tell them the PIN number so that they can enter it in, so there's no touching of the pad in any way. And we'll make sure that our little ones who can't do that have a little lanyard or have something on that the cafeteria employees can read that quickly and they can help them out. Everything is going to be prepackaged. It's going to be handed to the students. There's going to be no touching of anything. If there's upsale items, we can still have those. So you can still purchase those, but it would again be a request and then it would be handed to you. There'd be no touching of anything going on. All right. So if you need a lunch or a breakfast, on the days that you're remote, we will be providing that. We'll have an area where people could come and pick it up. But we're also going to work with the food service provider that if you're in on Monday, we'll just send you home with your breakfast and lunch for the next day so that you don't have to worry about coming back to the school. Same thing Tuesday for Wednesday, Wednesday for Thursday. And then those kiddos who are in on Wednesday, we'll get you hooked up for Thursday and Friday. The kids who are in on Thursday will get you hooked up for Friday. If you're completely virtual, again, we'll have a place that you could come like we did during the summer, and you could pick up your food and we'll have that all ready for you. So we will be working with you on your remote days or if you're fully virtual. So one of the things that we're going to do this year is we're not going to be using book bags. We're really going to limit the things coming in and out of the building. And we'll, if there's any questions on that, we'll answer them for you. We're going to try to work homework virtually as much as possible. So that we're not transitioning things back and forth. We're leaving things in the school. And we're going to look that those essential learning materials are posted to the Google Classroom, because that's the platform we're going to be using, so that you can access them at home and kids don't have to take things to and from the schools. Now, at the high school level, we do have lockers, and we will be letting kids use their lockers, but Mr. Gatto has established a scaffolding schedule, so kids will be coming in at different times in the morning to limit that congestion in the hallway and getting to lockers in first period, so we don't have to worry about students piling on top of each other while they're attending or they're going to their lockers. So we'll make sure that we have all of that in place as well. And he can go over that schedule with you in a little bit. Sports bags. Now, again, folks, the governor came out with a statement today. PIAA said they're going to have another meeting tomorrow. At this point yesterday, the Lackawanna League delayed the start of sports, and Mr. Gatto has put that information out. But sports bags will only come into the building if you have practice immediately after school or a competition immediately after school. We will continue to use the same room that we always have, the team room, the basketball team room, but we'll adhere to 6-foot social distancing outside of the room, and we're only going to allow one student at a time into that area. So one of the things that we said this year for elementary kids with their supplies was that we wanted a gallon bag with their name on it, and then we wanted specific supplies in there. I'm very, very pleased to be able to tell you that our folks at Snowforge have come through, and they're going to be donating these supplies in the bags to all the elementary students. So, a big thank you to their generosity. We are so appreciative of what they did, but they will be helping us out with these things so that your child has an individual gallon bag with their name on it, with their supplies in it, so there's no sharing of materials. They are the only one touching those materials or resources, so that we can guarantee that, that we're mitigating that passing of things to mitigate the spread. On the secondary level, we received some grant money through the federal government because of COVID, and we purchased Chromebooks for every student in grades 7 to 12. So we will be doing a one-to-one computer initiative for all of our secondary students. There's going to be a handbook and some new paperwork that goes with that. Mr. Gatto will be updating everyone on the rules and the things that go along with that. But we're really excited about this technological opportunity for our students, and it's going to help with mitigating that need for things to leave the building and come back, because kids will really only be using their Chromebook, and we'll be providing more information about that. So, you know, we have a lot of water fountains in the building. They are all going to be turned off this year because we can't have people using water fountains. We don't want to be spreading the germs around. So at the elementary level, we're going to allow students to bring in 1 bottle of water from home every day, and they can have that with them. And if they need a bottle or don't have it, we'll have bottles there for them. And then we took and converted the high school water fountains to water bottle filling stations. And we're going to have fillable water bottles that kids will be able to purchase at the school store, so that they'll be able to get their water there from those, so that we can make sure the kids have the water they need during the day. From a transportation perspective, elementary will still have busing. We are going to be adding a 3rd run to take and to be able to spread kids out more on the buses. We will be disseminating those times and those schedules to everyone. We have a meeting with the transportation provider next week to get everything finalized. So we're working on that. When we're on the bus, only immediate family members or kids who live together in the same house, cohabitate together, will be allowed to sit in the same seats. We're going to be spreading kids out to the maximum extent possible on those buses. And we're encouraging anyone that if you can transport your child yourself, to go ahead and do that, because you know that's the safest thing that you can do. And I went over the AM and PM kindergarten transportation. So if you looked at the plan at all online, we put extremely detailed hygiene protocols in place. I learned more about the building's ventilation system than I ever thought that I would know. I know where fans are, how they work, how the room systems work. I could give you full descriptions at this point, but I need you to know that we have what we ordered in cleaning supplies for this year more than quadruples. And this is for the start of the year, what we would order for a whole year normally. We're going to make sure that every room has the wipes, hand sanitizer, and tissues available at all times. We will be hiring an extra day shift maintenance person who will be making sure that bathrooms and areas where there's multiple use are going to be cleaned and sanitized on a regular basis. There will be a sign-in and sign-out sheet so we can document all of that. We're going to be sanitizing everything nightly. We ordered these, they're called Mr. Fogger guns. We also ordered something called an electric static gun, which allows us to sanitize large areas very quickly. I won't lie to you, the Mr. Fogger guns kind of make me feel like a Ghostbuster, because that's what they look like to me. But we will be able to make sure that large areas are sanitized effectively and quickly. Things like lockers and hallways, we'll still be wiping down desks and keyboards and all that stuff by hand, but we're going to make sure everything is cleaned nightly, deeply, so that we can make sure that the building is always clean. And we will be putting in intense cleaning protocols during the day as well, along with having that personal stuff like the hand sanitizer and the wipes for everyone during the day. And again, we are building age and grade level appropriate lesson plans into our Devil's Pride program, so that we're going to be reminding kids about this on a daily basis, so that we're reinforcing these hygiene protocols all the time. Unfortunately, and we're hoping nobody does get sick, but if you have symptoms of the virus, you need to make sure that you stay home. And if you're displaying symptoms in school, we have designated quarantine areas in the building. At the secondary level, we're going to be using the boardroom. At the elementary level, we're going to be blocking off an area of the hallway, which would be by where the weight room is, if you're familiar with it, so that there's close to exits. So when parents come, we can get children out, or we could get even staff members out quickly and efficiently, and that they're quarantined away from the general public. If somebody has a fever, we are asking that you're fever-free for 3 days or 72 hours before you return, and that should be without fever reducer. Remember, a fever is one of the major signs here, 100.4 or higher. So we really want to make sure we're taking that seriously. If your student or your child has to stay home, we will be able to seamlessly pick up through the Google Classroom so that they're engaged in learning. We want to make sure that they're there. Now, if they're sick, we'll work with them like we always have. But if they're home and they have to quarantine, we'll make sure that they're getting their education. And if you have any of those other symptoms, but you don't have a fever, we're asking that you are medically cleared by your physician before you come back, and that medical documentation is given to our school nurse so that we know that you're okay. And again, folks, I understand in a normal school year, your kid gets boo-boo belly. We would tell you, go home, take care of them. But it's not a normal year, and we all have to keep remembering that. So we're going to ask for different documentation this year than we would have in the past because of the severity of this virus and making sure we're ensuring everyone's health and safety. If a positive test ever happened to somebody in your home or to one of the students, so if it happens to somebody who's in the school, we're going to make sure that we disseminate the information quickly and efficiently to everyone who needs to know that. I think you're all probably sick of my voice coming through on one calls right now, but you will have that information. If you saw at all the situation that happened with our prom this summer, we made sure we got the most reliable, truthful information possible. We had press releases that were put out via Dojo, via email. On our Facebook side, one calls were made. I can guarantee you will be fully aware of what you need to know to make sure that your child is safe. If somebody, your child or someone in your home tests positive, remember that you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days. If you're not the positive case, if you are the positive case, you quarantine from 10 days from the date of that positive test. And you really need to be symptom-free, not just 10 days, but 10 days and symptom-free. That's the very big thing there that we have to stress. And we will make sure that we are following the PA Department of Health and the CDC guidelines in investigating the outbreak and contact tracing. So we are going to do all the things we need to do. The Department of Health will be contacted immediately. You all will know as parents and guardians the information that you need to know so that we can keep everyone safe within the confines of the building. And again, if you have that exposure, you have to make sure you're quarantining for 14 days. And folks, I understand people spend a lot of money on vacations and you've had a lot of plans, but the Department of Health in the state of Pennsylvania has put out a list of states, of hotspots, that if you go to, it is recommended that you quarantine. We are asking you to do that, because it is for the health and safety of the entire Old Forge school community that you do that. We will make sure your child is still learning and that seamless transition into the remote learning through Google Classroom happens, but we are asking that you follow those guidelines. Our school nurse this year is going to be collecting information like she always does on students and staff members. And we're going to be working with anyone who's high risk on anything that they need. Contact us if there's any accommodations or modifications that you believe that you'll need. And with parent permission, as always, we will share out on a needs to know list information that staff needs to have so that we make sure that your child is medically protected. If necessary, we will do an individual health plan on your child, but we are making sure that we're going ahead and we're taking care of those needs so that everyone has the information they need to protect your child. And I know this is really hard because we love to have all of you in the building, and especially our PTO parents and our volunteers. The work you do is unbelievable, but we're banning access of anybody who doesn't have to be there this year. We'll work remotely like we are now. We'll set up remote meetings with people. We'll do remote IEP meetings. We'll do parent meetings remotely. If you have to drop your child off, we'll come to the door and we'll retrieve them. But we can't have visitors in the building this year because it's just a different year than normal, and we want to mitigate that spread of the virus in any way. So, that's just a short of the plan of what we're aiming to do this year. I'm sure that there's a lot of questions. So if you have questions, we have a chat room that we could start to monitor, and I haven't been in there yet because I was presenting. We'll start going through those, or you can talk. How about I start with the questions in the chat room? I'm hoping that's okay with everyone. So I see that there's a question, can we still bring lunches? Yes, you can. You can still bring lunches to school. Did you guys, Shelly or Chris, did you guys answer a lot of these?
Aaron, we've been going through and answering them. We are getting to a lot. If we want to scroll down,
Bottom.
you want me to go down? I can read them out loud, and we can at the point that we're at.
Sure. Because I don't know where you left off.
Okay, so I think we're at the point, will the teacher instruction be recorded to be accessed later in the day? Yes, it will be. So if your child is off-site and you're working, they're at childcare, and for whatever reason they cannot log on during the day, the material will be available for them to access in the evening, but they are required to access it daily. So at some point in the day, they need to access it. I have one child in the elementary school and one child in the high school. Will my children be scheduled on the same days? And I'm sorry, Aaron, Dr. Keating, do you want to be answering these? I'm sorry.
No, listen. They just listened to me yap at them for the last half hour. So feel free, Mrs. Egan, to share the wealth, share the love.
Okay. So yes, Mr. Gatto and I are working to schedule siblings on the same day, and a lot of you on your registration forms, you have indicated that, so we are working through that. So will kids in either building have to wear khaki pants, shorts on days when they don't have gym? So I'm going to speak for the elementary because it works differently in the high school. In the elementary, they can wear gym attire when they are on site for both days, regardless of whether they have gym or not. If they are choosing not to wear gym attire, they must wear the dress code attire. But if they do have gym, they need to be in gym attire. But if they don't have gym, they can choose to wear gym attire or dress code attire. So that is the leeway that we are giving with the dress code option. So Mr. Gatto, do you want to speak to the high school?
We're going to follow the same plan as the elementary. In our handbook, we do have a physical education dress code. So the physical education dress code can be followed on a daily basis. If you choose not to, then it would have to be the dress code that we currently have. And just like in the elementary, if a student has physical education scheduled for that day, we're not utilizing the locker room, so they would have to come prepared and dressed for physical education on that day.
Okay. If you are choosing virtual kindergarten, you need to complete the registration form stating that choice, which then there was a follow-up question that I already completed the registration. What is the next step for online and when is the start date? So if you're referring to the most recent registration form that we had sent out and not the whole registration packet for kindergarten, the most recent registration form that we sent out, it was pretty much sent out electronically, posted on Facebook, posted on Dojo, and most people sent it back either through email or they may have mailed them, which indicated if you were choosing the virtual instruction, or if you were choosing hybrid, or for kindergarten, you could have chose AM or PM at that time. So for kindergarten, you can, in the comment box, choose if you are, you could add if you wanted to go virtual. So that's the form that you would need to complete. But if you already sent that form in for kindergarten and selected AM or PM for kindergarten, you can simply email me or call the office and we can update that for you. And the start date would be the same for everyone, which would be September 8th. Let's see, okay, we talked about dress code for the high school. How will arrival and dismissal be handled for the elementary kids? So there's a couple of things that we have to consider with arrival and dismissal in this for the elementary, because our kids arrive, some kids arrive by bus, some kids arrive by parent pickup, some kids arrive by van, some kids walk. So there's a lot of different things that I need to consider. So the kids that are arriving by bus, they will arrive as they normally do by bus. We are considering adding a third run to that bus if need be. Now I can tell you that not as many kids are riding the bus this year, which some of the parents are choosing to do parent drop-off. So if we need to add that third run, we will do that. So we are still working out those runs. So you will be receiving those runs and times as you normally would when you receive your child's class assignment. Now, as far as AM arrival for parent pickup, the gates will open at 8 o'clock, which is when breakfast time will start. So once those gates open, you will, come into the area. Mr. Dura will be there just as usual. The kids will go into their assigned area. We will have an additional area for student arrival. So typically we have 2 areas. We will now have 3 areas for student arrival. And breakfast will be as Dr. Keating had stated. Now for for elementary dismissal, again, we have to think about buses, we have to think about parent pickup, and we have to think about walkers. So for parent pickups, this is what would most affect the parents coming to the school. So I will stagger dismissal, and we will begin dismissal at 2:20. I was trying to balance that with not losing too much instructional time. Obviously, our students' health and safety is of utmost importance, but obviously as educators, we still want to educate our students, so I'm trying to balance that. So we're going to start with 2:20 for first grade, and then every 5 minutes after that, we will dismiss a grade level 2 parent pickup. So I have specific instructions that I will be giving out to parents, and I will be holding my own separate elementary meeting for parents after Dr. Keating does her next meeting next week, which will be giving that to you. But every 5 minutes, I will be dismissing a grade level, and I would be asking parents that they come into that parent pickup area, pick up the child that they have in that grade level, and then go to their vehicle. Now, if you have multiple children, let's say you have a first grader and then maybe a 4th grader, so we know that there's going to be a time frame in the time that you're picking up those students. So you pick up the first grader, go to your car with the child, wait for the time frame that you're going to pick up the 4th grader, and then you as the parent just go out and get the 4th grader and go back to your car. You don't have to leave the area, but just wait in your car. So I don't want parents congregating in that parent pickup area for that whole time while waiting for the staggered dismissal. So that will all be explained to parents, and then I will also stagger bus dismissal, but again, that doesn't really pertain to parents needing to be at a certain spot at a certain time. So that's how I'm anticipating the parent dismissal. Again, once we get the littles into the building, we may need to adjust depending, seeing how the routines go. And that, that's just a matter of what we plan out on paper and then seeing how it actually comes when we get the kids into the building. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have next? For virtual, will students need to log on in the morning? Will they have live teacher time, or do they work when they can as they did last time? So for virtual students, yes, they would need to log in the morning if they can. Again, if there's a reason that they can't, a valid reason such as childcare, they need to access that material daily. But they should be following, ideally what we're looking at is they should be following their class schedule. And I'll let Mr. Gatto talk about his high school, but for the elementary, they should be following along with their class schedule. For the elementary students, for our primary students, they will be working with one teacher. For our 3 through 6 teachers, they pretty much have 3 class periods. So they would have 3 classes that they would log on to throughout the class day. So they would log on at specific times to work with that class, which will be live sessions at times, or it could be some recorded videos that they would follow along with instructional material. So Mr. Gatto, do you want to speak a little bit about the high school?
Yeah, much the same way as Mrs. Egan has just said. In the high school, you would be following the schedule if you were here in the building or home on the hybrid days, or even if you're virtual. In terms of the bell schedule, much like the elementary, we're trying to stagger start times to promote social distancing, not have as many students in the hallway at lockers at one time. The only time students will be able to go to lockers when they're in the building are before school, after school, and before and after lunch. What arrival time is going to look like in the high school, 7th and 8th graders will have an arrival window time of 7:55 to 8:05. 9th and 10th graders, 8:05 to 8:15, and 11th and 12th graders, 8:15 to 8:25. That means first period is going to be extended. Same way at the end of the day, we're extending out 10th period. There's going to be no 11th period this year in the high school. I need at that time to have our extended arrivals and dismissals. So at the end of the day, 7th and 8th graders will dismiss at 2:20. 9th and 10th graders will dismiss at 2:30, and 11th and 12th graders will dismiss at 2:40. And that's on a regular bell schedule. If for some reason, we end up that we're all virtual, that there is no in-person learning here in the school, there will then be another bell schedule, a different bell schedule that doesn't take into account those arrivals and dismissal times.
Okay, the next question. My son was diagnosed. This is a health-related issue. You told the nurse what to look out for. Will she still have that information? Yes, she will definitely have that information, but it's always good practice. There would be updated information, updated health paperwork that you fill out yearly. So that should be completed and updated, and you can always touch base with her to make sure that that's updated. So Dr. Keating, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, every year we want to make sure we have updated health information on everyone, so that we have the most recent information. We don't ever want to have something that could have changed, over the year. Now, because we're so small, Mrs. Martinelli really has a good lock on who our kids are that have any kind of compromised health issues. And she's wonderful in what she does. So you know that she'll take care of the things that you need. However, we will always want to make sure that updated information is there.
Our own teachers will be giving the online live instruction, correct? There will be live instruction and pre-recorded instruction, and it will be dependent on the teacher laying out that instruction and what works best for their course material, and how that material should be given to the students and laid out for the students and presented to the students. But there will be a mix of that instruction. And the teachers will be providing you with that information as we get closer to the school year.
I think the big thing to point out there, Mrs. Egan, is there's going to be no canned programs like there were in the spring. It's going to be our teachers populating the Google Classroom with our curriculum and our lessons.
Correct. Will in-person club meetings still be held? Mr. Gatto, I think this is for you, athletics,
Yep.
practice, etc.
Okay, I could take actually the next few, I think. In-club meetings, right now, because we're going to have, it's scattered where some kids may be in the building one day and not the other. I think those would best to be able to happen virtually, but that would be up to the club advisors to go through that. Athletic practices, you are correct. There are voluntary practices that are happening currently, but as Dr. Keating said earlier, the governor released a recommendation today to hold off all athletics until January 1st. The PIAA is taking that under consideration and are supposed to be releasing more guidance tomorrow at some point. Next question, you said parents will be required to check temperatures before school. Does this mean they will not be checked in school unless they're showing symptoms? No, we are going to have a system that students are going to be walking through that are taking their temperature. So every student enters the building, their temperature will be taken by that system. Will face masks be required for gym class? Much like we have said with our athletic programs, any point where a student is actively engaged in working out, they do not have to have a face mask on. Okay, but if they are not actively engaged, then they will be required to have a face mask. Will VOTEC need to change, or can they wear their tech clothes full time? VOTEC students will still be required to change into school district dress code. Before they come back from VOTEC, they are going to have to change. It was mentioned that sanitizing wipes and sprays will be provided to each teacher. Will desks be wiped down in between class rotations? Will this also apply to computer keyboards in the computer lab? Yes, we will be, in some way, shape, or form, having the desks wiped down between rotations. My plan in the high school is that there's going to be wipes in each room. As students come in, they will be given a wipe to wipe down their particular desk. In computer labs as well, that is the same process that is going to occur. The keyboard needs to be wiped down every time we change a student that is going to be at that keyboard. Okay, next part. How do I know which teacher my son has this year? If so, can we communicate with Dojo? Mrs. Egan, I think that one's for you.
Yes, so we will get those listings of teacher names and everything out as soon as possible. Mr. Gatto and I are kind of at the tail end of just communicating and making sure that siblings are scheduled, are aligned. We want to make sure that that's right for you. So that's just a step that we previously have not had to do in the past. So that's just taking a little bit longer, and we still have registrations coming in about going hybrid or online. So, you know, we want to have them out to you as soon as we can, because we know you need to make your schedules. So we're doing that as quickly as we can. So hopefully within the next week, we can have that information out for you. And yes, the elementary, we will still be using Dojo to communicate for our school and class news.
Okay, given classes vary in sizes, will each class be able to adhere to 6 feet apart? As Dr. Keating had said earlier, we have been going through with Mr. Gutowski. I have been going with him in the high school, and Mrs. Egan has gone through with him in the elementary, moving desks and ensuring that there would be a 6 feet separation from person to person. And that's why we're doing this hybrid schedule, so that we can ensure that. Next question, when will we find out about what virtual learning will look like so we can make a decision for our children? Will it be taught by regular L4 teachers? Will virtual students be included in a hybrid class, or is there a different group of online-only kids with different instruction? I think the first two questions were answered already there, but the last one about will virtual students be included in hybrid classes? Yes, they're not going to have their own individual group of just virtual students. Speaking for the high school, they're going to be given a schedule just like every other student, and they would follow that schedule as if they were in the building every day. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mrs. Egan.
No, I mean, I'm doing it the same way because ultimately for everyone, and I think I speak for Mr. Gatto and Dr. Keating, I mean, our ultimate goal and our hopeful goal is that everyone at some point in the future will be back in our buildings. So, you know, we have realistic numbers of who's going to be walking these halls, and hopefully we also need to keep potential numbers of who's going to be in what class. So yes, everybody is assigned a class and a teacher, and hopefully we'll be able to see everybody's face of all of our students, because that's what we want to see.
And I think we have to add in there that we know that this is going to be ever changing. So, you know, we're sticking to marking. We're going to really try to stick to marking period changes. But as we go into flu season, somebody may say, you know what, I want my kid to go on virtual now. Or, you know what, I did virtual for a marking period. I'd like to let them try hybrid. So on those marking period switches, we want to be able to work with you to make sure that kids can come in and out as well. If things change for you personally, or if things change for the district or your family, so on and so forth.
Okay, there's a couple questions around fevers and staying home. Students will be able to access the online classroom on days they need to stay home due to having any symptoms, as long as they're feeling well enough. Yes, if students feel well enough, but they have a fever and they're being held home, they can access the online material. Another question with a similar topic, if your child is home with a fever or sore throat and is staying home for precautionary measures, but does not end up being COVID related, is there a grace period with the number of allowed absences? Unfortunately, right now, we are still following the same guidelines through the state in terms of absences. Remember, and this has been the same for a while now, you have 10 absences that a parent can vouch for. So because we don't want to have exchanging of paper this year, I know in the high school we're doing only email, and I believe that elementary had moved to that last year, only email excuses to the office. So you have 10 email parent excuses. Once we hit that 10 mark, excuses after that need to be a medical excuse. So that is still in play, and unless more guidance comes out freeing us from that. I sent our hybrid plan in a few weeks ago. How can I be sure it was received? I never received an email of confirmation. Just to let you know that we've been inundated with those requests. We have not been emailing out saying the request has been received. If something happens and you get your schedule and it's not what you had wished for, then you can certainly call either the elementary office or high school office, and we'll rectify that situation. Still confused on the 98.5 temp. That is below what is considered normal. Will kids be
98.6, that's my fault. It was a typo.
98.6, okay. Given there's limited time between classes, who will be sanitizing the desk and computers? Will there be enough time for teachers to do that, or will it be students doing it? I answered that a little while ago. I'm envisioning the students being handed a sanitary wipe as they're coming in to wipe down the desks and keyboards in between.
Similar to the grocery carts in the grocery store when you pop in.
Correct. Will the student be switching classes in the elementary during the day?
So for the elementary, for the primary, K through 2, they are what we call self-contained classes, so they stay within the same class. Now for 3rd through 6th, in the past, the tradition has been that they do switch classes. So They will be staying in the same class. Teachers will be transitioning. They will be rotating to the classroom. So the teachers are actually changing and not the students this year. There are some students that require specific supports, and we're, doing our best to minimize that, but there are, due to those supports, still students that need to go to a room to receive those supports. So that will still need to happen, even though we're trying to minimize that as much as possible.
And I just want to piggyback on that. In the high school, we will be changing classes, but to minimize large groups, the hallways are going to be one way. So the second floor hallway is going to be one way going down towards the windows at the end of the hall at the parking lot. And then the first floor hallway is going to be one way from the shop back down here towards the office. So between the changing classes, students can only move one way in those two hallways. There's a few more questions here about the 98.6 and temperature. Dr. Keating, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, so what I had said when I went through the PowerPoint was that 100.4 is absolutely the indicator of a possible COVID exposure. But what we're asking is that if it's 98.6, if you're not normal, if it's elevated for any reason, that you make sure that you keep yourself home, because you don't know if that's the start to something. Contact your physician. Like I said, in a normal year, if you had a 99 fever, I get it. You might pop 2 Tylenol and come into work, or pop 2 Tylenol and go to school. It's a different set of circumstances this year. And for the protection of everyone, we need to be super diligent. So 100.4 is an indicator of possible COVID infection, but anything over a 98.6, which is considered normal, needs to be looked at closely, and you need to stay home to make sure it's not the start of something that could lead to that 100.4. It's just extra diligence, and I know it's a pain. I get that this is challenging for everyone, but unfortunately, it's different from, oh, my stomach was a little off and I had the flu by noon in a normal year, compared to this being the indicator of this virus.
Next question, will teachers get their temperatures checked as well? Everybody that works in the school district, that being teachers, administration, clerical, maintenance, everyone will have their temperatures checked upon entering the building. Handbooks for the 2020-2021 school year will be released. They are on the agenda for this month's school board meeting. As soon as they are approved, we will release those. So about the different starting times, what if my ride to school is in a different grade than me? If the weather is fine, you will have to wait outside. If we have inclement weather, we are going to have the high school gymnasium and the bleachers opened, so that we can socially distance in the bleachers if you have a different time than the person that drove you to school. I think you've all done an excellent job preparing for the return to school. Thank you very much. Can students still stay after school for extra help? Right now, unfortunately, with having to have shifts for students leaving the building, I would say we're going to have to revisit that. Just because it's going to be very difficult with the number of students in the hallway at the same time. We are going to have Friday available on the hybrid schedule, where staff is going to be available for that extra time, for that extra help. So you will be still logging into Google Classroom. You will still have an assignment for that day, but there will be more give and take on a Friday where a teacher can have that one-on-one extra help. For staggered high school arrival times, I have an 8th grade and 11th grader. Can they be dropped off together, or do they need to go through the circle twice? Like I said, they can be dropped off together. If the weather is good, they can wait outside. If not, then we will have a staging area in the gymnasium. Do the children in elementary get Chromebooks for online learning? Mrs. Egan, I think you answered that question before. We will have Chromebooks available. Not every elementary student is going to get a Chromebook, but if there is a need and we're able to fill that, we will give Chromebooks. How many kids will be seated at each high school lunch table? Right now, the circle lunch tables in the cafeteria, socially distanced, we can fit 2 at each of those tables, and then we are going to have individual seats in the hallway between the auditorium and the cafeteria. Was it considered to have teachers rotate classrooms rather than students? It would eliminate crowds. Yes, that was considered in the high school. The issue with that is not every student follows the same schedule, especially when we're talking about electives. So no matter how we did it, there was going to have to be student movement at some point. Also, we're minimizing teachers having to use the same materials as well if we keep them in their rooms. If students are moving with their own materials, there's less cross-contamination. Will hybrid option be available all year? That is the plan as of right now.
We're all hoping that, like everyone else, at some point life returns to normal, and this isn't how we're living. And if that happens and the state says you're good to go, we're going to be good to go. But as long as there's concern for your child's health, safety, or welfare, we're going to keep this this process in place.
Okay, I'm still confused about how hybrid is working. On days home, will students be logged in and participating with their peers in class so that everyone is getting the same instruction? Yes, that is the goal, that on hybrid days, on days when students are home, they will be logging into their Google Classroom for live instruction, or the teacher has uploaded a taped lesson that they'd be doing in the class. So either they're going to see the teacher live teaching with the students that are in front of them, or a taped instruction of the same thing that's going on in the classroom. If we're getting sent home because of having symptoms or above the temperature, that day counts against us. However, we expect at less than 10 absences if we are being sent home. If a student is sent home by the nurse, that is an excused absence. I thought a fever was considered 100.4 and above. 100.4 and above is considered a symptom of COVID. One of the symptoms of COVID, but a fever is anything above normal body temperature. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Dr. Keating.
No, again, folks, I get it. I think for those of you who joined late, I have openly admitted that prior to COVID, I was the person who powered into work when I probably should have been home with a terrible head cold or a sinus infection or something else. 100.4 is that mark that says you might have COVID. But if your temperature is over 98.6, that means you have an infection, or you could have an infection in your body. You need to seek out your medical professional because of COVID right now. We want to mitigate the exposure or possible exposure to everyone in the building. So we need to be much more diligent this year than we would have been in the past. It's not fun for anyone. I get it. A 99, pop 2 Advil, go to work. You would have made it through the day. Can't do that this year. You have to make sure that that 99 isn't the start to the 104. 100.4. 104, you're going to be in a hospital bed, so we don't want anyone getting that.
Okay. Will girls still be permitted to carry purses even though backpacks won't be allowed? Yes. If so, will boys be allowed to carry a drawstring or something similar to carry their own sanitizer and what else they may need? We are not at this time going to allow drawstring bags. There is going to be sanitizer available throughout the building. Much sanitizer has been purchased. I think Dr. Keating had mentioned that previously. So that will be available. Dr. Keating just went over temperature again. With high school changing classes with the same kids, be the same kids all day, or will it be mixing together? Example, will say an elective be mixed with kids from different grades like it has been in the past? Yes, electives do have a mixing of kids from different grade levels. If a child wakes up feeling ill, can they choose to attend that day of school online? If so, will it count against the 10 days? If they are, I'm not sure if you're saying that this is a hybrid student. So if this is a student that was supposed to report to school, they did it and they're staying home.
If you have one, I think, Chris, I think like if you have one of those symptoms and you can't go to school because you have one of those symptoms, you're going to call off in the morning and say, I need to stay home. I have a symptom. But if you're healthy enough that you could participate, absolutely, you can go right into that online environment.
Correct. We did an excellent job fielding questions. Thank you. Even masks are not required when 6 feet apart. Will mask wearing be encouraged at all times? Yes, mask wearing is encouraged at all times. We're just saying that students will not need to wear a mask when seated at their desk. If you still want to wear your mask while seated at the desk, by all means, yes. In the high school, the switching of classes, if one student or faculty member is positive or exposed, does the whole school quarantine? Or is there a way to tell what children, rooms, and the staff came in contact with, considering they were moving throughout the school day? Yes, we would be able to contact trace back based on scheduling. Also based on, our hallway cameras and being able to locate where students were at what point in the day. So yes, we would be able to contact trace. Mask reduce the risk of getting COVID to less than 1%. For the high school, if the student is full remote, will there be a schedule to pick up their subject matter books and Chromebooks? Yes, we are still waiting for Chromebook arrival. So we will set up a schedule once that occurs. Will Picture Day still be happening? At this point, I would say that is up in the air. If things do not approve, I would say that we are not probably going to have Picture Day. Sign it late. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. It will be shared out. Is there a plan for learning support and Wilson's program with hybrid?
Michelle was answering some of these too.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see that down there. Will students be able to ask questions during class while they are virtual? Yes. Welcome. Got it. Also, what's the difference between a purse and a drawstring bag? We're trying to limit the amount of materials that are coming into the building. So, we have to draw the line somewhere. We've decided that we can't prevent a young woman from bringing a purse into the building.
And Chris, I'll answer this with a specific reason. The reason that young women will be allowed to bring a certain size person to the building is because of having their menstrual cycle. Very, very specifically, that's why. That is why they will be allowed to have that other people will not.
There's a question, Mrs. Egan, about supply list for kindergarten.
Well, the supply list that Miss Dr. Keating had stated would apply to all the students with the exception of there were 2 specific items more geared towards the upper elementary. So that would be what the kindergarten student would apply to the kindergarten students. Now, if the kindergarten teachers wanted to add anything more specific for the kindergarten students, we will get that out to you. But for right now, that would be the supply list for the kindergarten students as well.
Dave Marcico asked about our Clear Shield approved yet? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Dave. If you could clarify your question. Another thank you to us.
You forgot the space mask.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry,
Dave.
Dave. Go ahead.
Those face masks that look like they go around your forehead and your whole face is covered, but it's a clear plastic shield. I believe we saw them at like the Hobby Lobby or something for $5. That's why I'm asking instead of wearing a face mask.
Dave, it has to come down under your chin. So,
Okay.
like, you have to make sure that the entire face to your chin is covered in that face shield.
And if it is,
Yes,
Like
the
the
Secretary
young
of
kids?
Health said that they're allowed. The Secretary of Health said that they are allowed. She said the best thing that you can have is a cloth covering that covers the nose and the mouth. But if you're going to use the shield needs to come down low enough that and around your whole face that is encased.
okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. If tech kids need to change, how will they transport clothes without a bag? Tech kids will be able to take a bag to transport clothes, but just like we said about student athletes and having their bag and locking their bag up, that's what tech kids will have to do as well. For the first day of school in the high school, should students bring a notebook, etc.? Yes, students can bring a notebook with them. Teachers will go over, just like every year on the first day of school, exactly what is needed for their class. But students should bring at least a notebook for that first day. My child has asthma and she coughs periodically throughout the day. Will she be sent home for coughing if no other symptoms appear?
Chris, I can answer this because we talked, unless you want to.
No, go ahead.
So one of the things that we're going to be able to do, and Dr. Salavante, our school physician, gave us the okay with this, is that if your child has severe allergies or your child has a respiratory disorder where they may display something that we would consider symptomatic, a note can be presented to our school nurse, and it can be documented on that needs to know list, so that we're not calling you every day in October because your child has hay fever and their eyes are watering and they're sneezing. We're going to have you as a parent be extra diligent. You know your child, the difference between allergies and between what is looking like leading into sickness. But we understand that those things will happen. They can be documented medically through a physician, and they can be part of what the nurse has as a needs to know list, so that teachers are aware that someone is an asthmatic and may wheeze, or that someone has severe allergies and may be sniffly during a certain period of the year.
Okay. Next question is an elementary one. My student will be a walker after school. I know book bags are not allowed. I want him to have his cell phone on him while walking home. Will this be a problem if he keeps the phone in his lunch bag?
No, it will not be a problem. And when a lot of the children will have, elementary children, of a certain age will still have to bring their cell phones. So if they're not bringing a lunch, they can have it in their pocket on their way to school. And I would tell them that when they get into the school, it needs to be shut off. And when they get into their classroom, it needs to be put inside their desk into the way back and not accessed until they leave the building. Just as it would be typically kept in their book bag, it would now have to be kept in their desk in their way back. No one else will be in their desk throughout the course of the day from kindergarten up through 6th grade. No one will be in their desk. It's their desk and no one will be in it. And that is different for this year, especially for 3rd through 6th grade. Typically with the rotation, somebody else will be sitting in their desk, but no one else will be in their desk. No one else will be near their desk. So it will be very safe to be kept in their desk. Mr. Gatto, do you want me to go on or do you want to continue?
I'm good.
I lost my place.
Will Chromebooks replace, or wait a second, I'm sorry.
Do when high school students have a supply list like binders and notebooks, or everything done through Chromebooks?
I think we're up further.
Okay.
Can
Sorry.
you still get a Chrome notebook this year for your child if you didn't get one last year? Yes. So just, if you didn't write it on the registration form, just let your main office know. To verify, no elementary student will need the listed supplies on day one due to the SnowForge donation. Correct. SnowForge will make that donation. How do we notify the nurse? My son has terrible allergies. So you can email the main office or let the main office know that you need to speak with Miss Martinelli, and we can set up a time for you to have that Google Meet and discuss what needs to occur there. That's not a problem. Will high school students still have to have school supplies such as binders and notebooks, or will everything be done on the Chromebooks?
For the most part, with going to the Chromebooks, we're going to try to utilize them as much as possible. A lot of our tech series do have an online component. I know I met with the math department yesterday. They're talking about not even handing out textbooks, just utilizing the online version of the book. With our marriage with Google, we're going to be looking to use Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Forms more and more. So we are moving towards that. But if your child still feels that they would like to bring a notebook, they can certainly do that. In terms of binders, I know binders have been a big thing in the past. We're going to talk to the staff when we come back and try as much as possible to be pushing towards Google and the Google Drive and utilizing it that way.
And I think that answers the next question as well. Okay, next, this is very informative and helpful for first-time parents of school-age kids. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And thank you for being patient with us. How will teachers have time to pre-record lessons while they have live classes in front of them daily? Will certain teachers be tasked with only handling the online part while others handle all the in-person? As of right now, all the teachers are responsible for live on-site instruction as well as remote instruction. So the teachers are aware of what's in front of them, so they are working very diligently to get themselves prepared for the upcoming school year. And we're working right alongside with them to help them along with that as they work on that. For children who have IEP, will the learning support teacher be the teacher, or would it be a regular mainstream teacher or fully virtual? We will, for students with IEPs, we will follow the IEPs as required. You know, as their IEP states, they would have a learning support teacher as required, and a general education teacher as required for those subjects. Is Mrs. Martinelli reachable on Dojo? Yes, she is on Dojo. She had joined this past spring, so she is still available on Dojo. Ms. Hopkins, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you had answered that. Will high school Chromebooks go back and forth between home and school?
Yes. Yes, those Chromebooks go between home and school.
Can an 8th grade sibling get a 4th grade sibling at the elementary school dismissal if needed, or can the 4th grader walk to the high school? The 8th grade student sibling can get a 4th grader, but they would need to exit the high school building and proceed outside to the parent pickup area and at the appropriate time pick up the 4th grader. The 4th grader will not be allowed to travel into the high school area to meet the 8th grader. And that's typically has always been the procedure. but there has been some sliding of that procedure in the years. So it does need to be enforced. I think that might be it.
I think you missed one question. Do students need to bring their Chromebooks to school? Yes, students will be required to bring their Chromebooks to school every day. And I think that now is it.
Listen, folks, I met with teachers this morning. I'm going to say the same thing to you. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that everyone is as safe as possible. From the Google Classroom technology side, will there be bumps in the road as we're trying to get this started in its full capacity for the first time? Sure there are, but you know how dedicated the teachers are. They will work with you. They will work with us. They will make sure that your kids are getting what they need. This is very different from the spring. Kids are going to be expected, like Mrs. Egan said, to do their work every day. There are going to be due dates and assignments every day. It is graded. There is no more pass-fail anymore. This is regular learning taking place, but just in such a different environment because of the confines of this virus. So we will continue to update you through Google, through Dojo, through Facebook, through our district website, through One Call. We will constantly keep updating you. If anything changes, we'll make sure you have that information immediately. Again, because of how things are changing and folks' directions come out at us, we don't even know they're coming. It's like getting hit by a freight train. You're not ready for it at all. Please make sure as a contingency, you have 5 days of child care aligned if we were put onto remote learning for any reason. This was recorded today, so I'll make sure that this gets posted up to our district website if people miss this. We also are going to be going through this exact same information. I believe it's next Thursday, guys, at 10. Next Wednesday at 10. Next Wednesday at 10. There's a lot going on. Next Wednesday at 10 a.m. So if you logged on late or if a question hits you that you're unsure of, we are going to be doing this same presentation and the same information. Any updates Wednesday at 10. We were trying to do one in the evening and one in the morning so that we could accommodate folks' parents' work schedules.
That's not good sign.
Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you so much for coming out tonight and for listening to this. And again, we'll make sure that any information you need is posted and sent out to you immediately. Have a great night, everyone.
Night.
Bye-bye.